In the coming days, a body of 88 senior clerics known as the Assembly of Experts will select a successor for Iran's slain supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Speculation is rife that the position will be filled by his second son, Mojtaba Khamenei. However, Israel has vowed to kill the next supreme leader that emerges. Mojtaba is a significant figure with strong links to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the elite wing of Iran's military. He's said to be well connected and already influential within the regime, holding a deep understanding of its inner workings. In the meantime, Israeli Ambassador Danny Danon has told reporters at the United Nations that Israel has control of almost all of Iran's airspace.
Look at the reach of their aggression. Hundreds of missiles and drones every day. Missiles launched toward the UAE, Bahrain, Oman, and many other countries. At least a dozen UN member states have been targeted, including Cyprus, a European country. This is not strategy, it is desperation. We knew it's not going to be an easy war. You know, we are aware of the abilities of the Iranian regime. You know, they spent billions of dollars on the infrastructure of terror, and we knew it's going to be a serious operation. It's not going to be over in one day or 1 week, but it will not last forever. We have superiority. Today we have control almost over all the airspace of Iran, and I'm sure we will be able to show that superiority in the next.
I'm elated that my country of origin is going to be free from 47 years of enslavement to a tyrannical and cruel regime. I came here in 1979 when Iran was taken by the Islamic Revolution, and it was no longer safe for a lot of people to live there. Other than going to the protests and cheering on the Iranian people, you know, there's nothing else I can do right now, but the first thing that I will do is when it's safe to go back there, I will be the first person on that plane.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the author and international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Marek, glad to have you join me on The World. Hexet says, welcome. Hexet says, 4 days into the war and the results are incredible. These were his words when he was addressing the press. He says, we're just getting started. We're accelerating. These were, like I said, his words. What are you reading into the statement from the Secretary of Defense?
Yes, the opening phase of the war is very good for America and for Israel. They have total air control. Iran has, on top of it, made some tactical mistakes in, for example, lobbying a missile over to Cyprus and apparently Turkey. And so from that point of view, it's going so far very well for the Americans and the Israelis.
And then Trump's urging Iranians to take over the regime. But the question is, are the people ready to act on behalf of Trump? Do they have the capacity? Trump is not willing to put boots on the ground, and he even promised Americans that America won't go to war. But here we are. I mean, this has been a talking point. Massey, a Republican, says this is not American first, and some other Republicans have been speaking up about this.
Yeah, the central problem he has is as follows. He wants regime change, but is not willing to put boots on the ground. Well, if that's not possible, then the only possibility is for the internal opposition. But the internal opposition faces three extraordinary problems. The regime is in total control, indeed has killed or murdered, depending on how you look on it, many of the people who make up this opposition. Number two, they have no easy way of communicating between themselves. And number three, the opposition is now tarred with being the tool of Trump and Netanyahu, which was I think, a huge mistake on the part, especially of Netanyahu, to speak out, because the implication is whoever says we don't agree with clerical regime is just seen to be a tool of Israel and America, which is a pity because there are many people there who want an Iran which is free but doesn't necessarily kowtow to Israel and America. And in this sense, they're going to have their work cut out to succeed. Hence, at present, there is talk of the Kurds in the West being a base.
Yeah, still on Hexet, he says Iran can outlast US on this war and that it could be 4, 6, 3 weeks. Iran's military chief, Larijani, says the difference between Iran and the US is that Iran is prepared for a long war, whereas the US isn't. This is from Larijani. What is the undertone in this statement? Evaluate these two standpoints.
Well, first and foremost, it's already gone wrong in one respect for America and Israel, in that the regime change, which I think was supposed to occur in the initial American thinking within days, simply hasn't happened. They assumed by eliminating Khamenei in the middle of talks, please note, and then bombing, that the opposition would just take power. Nothing of the sort has occurred, nor will it. So we're talking of weeks, and this is quite correct by Hexet, since plan A has failed, now it's going for plan B. But it's very hard to see why in a few weeks is much better. As I say, there's talk of the Kurds being a base, but one of the key problems is when dealing with a nation like Iran, which has a very proud history for thousands of years, I underline with thousands, is that for them, they have the Asian mentality, which is utterly lacking in America, of regarding time as a very long affair, like the Chinese do or the Indians. And therefore, for them, 4 to 6 weeks per se is nothing. More to the point, quite what, how does Trump and Hexet propose to act? Reduce, try and bomb Iran back into the Stone Ages like they did with Gaza? This is, of course, a possibility. Except, of course, that it's possible that China may supply them with weapons so that they can at least fight back against these bombings. Number two, if they don't succeed in mass bombing and want to do actually accurate bombing, then the problem here is that it can take a very long time to eliminate all the centers. And this is actually what's going on now. And number three, there's always the possibility of an enormous PR disaster. This was at the start when Hexet suddenly stated there were no rules of engagement, which were underlined by the fact that they'd missiled a girls' school and killed many girls in Iran. Many more such effects, and they'll run into the Gaza effect, whereby although Israel was all dominant in the skies, all dominant on the ground, people just got sick of the endless killing. And in effect, the Gaza situation is status quo antebellum in many ways. In the sense, Hamas is still there, Gaza is still there, and apart from reducing the Gazans to a desperate level of poverty, nothing has changed. And the same is beckoning in Iran. Please remember, America's really lost twice against Asian nations, Vienna and Afghanistan. Iran could easily be the third.
Please, now you've mentioned about the killings. 168 students and 14 teachers killed in an attack by the US on a school in Iran. And Hexet says they are investigating. He was clear about other things, but this particular issue, he says, they are investigating.
Yeah, there's a problem here. He said quite specifically, and I underline this, there are no rules of engagement. What is this investigation? Will it produce anything? The fact of the matter is that the US forces investigating the US, at best, will come out with some sort of saying it was a mistake, at best. And honestly, no one's going to lose their jobs. No one's going to be fired from this. So therefore, the whole investigation bit is just PR eyewash so that the world looks elsewhere. However, as I pointed out, many more such incidents and they'll run into a Gaza situation. This was a distinct own goal. Why miss out a girls' school at this very start? It was a real own goal by the Americans.
Okay, contrast Israel's goal, which is clear, and their attitude to this war, they want a regime change, and America seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Americans seemingly, should I say, lack of a razor sharp focus, and the Israelis seemingly, should I say, lack of a raz end game to this war?
Yeah, the problem is, apart from regime change, they have another overt goal, which is say that Iran should have no um, nuclear capability. But please note, there are two now swords of Damocles hanging over America's head. The first is many people have realized that the timing of the war was simply to distract from the Epstein file revelations. And the other one is, it's coming quite clear because it cross-links to Venezuela, that is actually a proxy war in the sense of putting pressure on China, which depends upon oil from Iran and Venezuela. And therefore, this is part of a bigger grand strategy. When these points become clear, and they are, because it is by no means only myself who has noticed this, then the problem for the Americans is to explain precisely why they are constantly bombing Iran. It would appear that there is no here good PR for the American side. And if they don't watch out, internal opposition within America will sink them.
And then what do you make of Trump lashing out at Britain, UK's PM, Starmer, and of course Spain? Actually, the president of Spain says Trump is playing what he calls the Russian roulette. So what do you make of him lashing out at UK's PM, Starmer, and of course, like I've said, Spain's president? Is Trump frustrated at Starmer, that Starmer isn't buying into this war? Starmer, by the way, doesn't believe in regime change.
Yeah, the central problem is that Trump simply wants blanket support for whatever idea comes into his head, and what is good for America, assuming this war is good for America, which already some people in America are questioning. But from the UK and Spain's point of view, there's absolutely nothing in the war which is for them. Moreover, it must be underlined that Keir Starmer is a lawyer. This war is illegal in international terms. He's too good a lawyer for that. Please remember, when Blair joined in, equally in illegal war, there were many problems for Great Britain, and Keir Starmer has enough internal problems without adding to them. As for Spain, it really is now sticking its neck out in enormous ways, and unfortunately, it may well be that Spain, and Turkey, by the way, is another one, may find themselves next on the list, because Trump seems to be going for country to country, and therefore this is a problem. Therefore, this opposition by Europe simply underlines the breakdown in NATO and in the West prior consensus. So America is going it alone in many ways.
You mentioned NATO. A missile, I gather, was launched towards Turkey, but of course was stopped mid-air. Is Iran trying to involve NATO in this war? How will that play out?
Well, I'm not sure, because I would say, and I'm moving to a military now analysis, everywhere else they've launched waves of missiles and drones. In Turkey, as indeed in Cyprus, it's just the one. It could be that there was some sort of, the missile went wrong in some ways, because it is out of character from everything else they've done. So therefore, I would hold fire on the Turkey and Cyprus issue until it becomes clear whether Iran really is gunning for them or whether it wasn't a mistake. Please remember, Russian missiles have encroached onto Poland or nearby. And it was said at the time, was this a mistake or not, and so on, or by other NATO countries. And here we have a similar situation. I think we should wait and see on this.
That makes a lot of sense. Wait and see. The military chief, Kane, while taking questions from the press today alongside Hex, the Secretary of Defense, talked about restraint. And this seems to fall in sync with the fact that Saudi Arabia and all the GCC states didn't want this war in the first place. And like you mentioned, Starmer is a lawyer, so he knows this war is illegal as far as they are concerned. Because of the attendant fallouts like they are experiencing today, what's your sense? The question of restraint from the Gulf states.
Yeah, the Gulf states unfortunately have been caught in the crossfire. There is nothing in them for this in this war, absolutely nothing. They've lost tourist revenue, a lot of prestige, and moreover, they've been made to feel extremely vulnerable because what America did the moment the going got rough is it withdrew, so to speak, much of its cover to cover Israel. In other words, Israel is all important. The Arab states are, so to speak, second rate, sort of Middle East B in America's plan, to put it in sort of Polish, how the Poles like saying these things. And here comes the key problem. If that is the case, and if they are exposed to Iranian attacks, and it follows that quite where is this alliance with America? That is one of the really big fallouts from all this. Number two, the fallout for tourism and everything else is quite substantial, especially if the war drags on. Now, here we have a problem, because as the war drags on, we have a kind of Vietnam, but here the real losers won't be so much America, although it loses enough. It'll actually be the Gulf states who lose tourism, revenue, oil revenue. One minor point for you, Russian oil is going back to India now. All this talk about India and sanctions and so on, and the reason why? They can't get hold of Arab oil. And so therefore suddenly Russian tankers are going back to India. The fallout is enormous, and the costs for the Gulf, maybe Arab Gulf states, may be quite substantial as a result. This war is very unfortunate for them.
Very unfortunate for them indeed. Reports have it that there are less missiles being fired from Iran, and this could mean either of two things. Either Iran's arsenal is being depleted, or Iran is measuring, as it were, its response to this war and conserving its arsenal for the long haul. What's your read into this?
There's actually a third possibility, that the launch sites have been taken out by the Israelis and the Americans. I think it's a mixture of all three. Iran has made it quite clear they can carry on for some time. In fact, I would say your second point about measured, that was from the word go. Please note, instead of launching thousands, they launched hundreds. The key point on this is by keeping going, it's unclear whether America really will stand the long run. This is what happened in Vietnam. This is what happened in Afghanistan. And so the question is how to bring Iran to the negotiating table. And we're back to square one. Without boots on the ground, Iran can carry on. And here comes the key problem. Is it possible to stop Iran launching missiles? It's a very big country. It has quite a lot of resources. It is a stable regime, despite all this talk about the opposition. They're very minimal in their effects. And therefore, unfortunately, the answer is it can carry on. And many of the oil refinery, for example, capacity in the Gulf, could be severely damaged as a result. So on the whole, it's a mixture. But yes, you're quite right in your second point. It is a measured response. But the thing is, it was right from the start, a measured amount of missiles per day.
Yeah, I mean, because the talk has been, it's interesting how you talk about, because I mean, the Iranians have said, we have the capacity, that Americans are not prepared for a long haul in this war. CIA is working, that's a report we're getting, is working to arm Kurds to spark an uprising in Iran. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it would appear that in this neck of the woods, the people don't learn very easily. Please know one aspect of this latest Iran war is that the Iranians, including Ayatollah Khomeini, were caught by precisely the same trap as a year ago. The Americans are supposedly negotiating with Iran, and they launched a surprise attack. I mean, to court twice over, that's not very good, is it? First time we can put it down to white man speaks with forked tongue, as the Red Indians used to say of the Americans. But second time round, that's not very good. And it would appear the Kurds have also learned nothing. In Iraq, they were told to rise up because George Bush then said, you can take it into your hands. And when it failed, and when they suffered huge casualties, the Americans just walk away from the mess. It's going to be the same thing again. Sure, the Kurds can make a small uprising. Sure, they can get armed. And sure, in effect, they're dying for America because, frankly, the Americans don't want to put boots on the ground. I would recall the Ukrainian joke that America is prepared to fight the last Ukrainian in the Russian-Ukrainian war. And here the Americans are prepared to put Kurdish boots on the ground and let the Kurds live with the consequences. It is a CIA plan. I believe that it would work out. The question is, are the Kurds going to fall a second time for the same problem? I think, as far as I can tell, the Kurds are certainly interested, but it would be a mistake to think that an uprising will be an easy success, and also it would be a mistake to think there wouldn't be bloody repercussions afterwards, as happened in Iraq.
Very interesting analysis, Dr. Marek. Before I let you go, this one point, the morning rather of Ayatollah Khomeini as in a gathering has been postponed because according to them, the question of logistics, because there are great numbers are going to attend that occasion. What paint us a picture of what you're thinking? I mean, there's talk that the sun could take over. I mean that's what I think. That's what has been postponed. That's who takes over, you know, than the morning. So what's your picture of this whole issue before I let you go?
Yeah, there are three aspects. First and foremost, one of the aspects of assassinating Ayatollah Khomeini was the Americans expected the entire regime to fall apart because it was based around one man. This has not happened. There is a way of choosing a successor, and it's very important because this is the bit the Americans didn't expect. There is now a process. Whoever gets chosen is automatically on the assassination list of Israel because Israel believes in killing all the opponents it can. So it's not just, by the way, America who doesn't obey the rules of engagement. How long can such a person survive? Well, Iran's a very big country, and if they do it properly, for a long time. And what is very odd about it is the 88 people have to come together. If this goes wrong for them, and I suspect it will do, because after all, the sheer level of penetration by Mossad into Iran is quite unbelievable, easily as great as the penetration into America by Mossad. If it goes wrong and many clerics are killed, they'll only have themselves to blame because they're using if you like, a 19th century way of going about things in the 21st century, which is not very good. However, the important point is there is a mechanism, there will be a choice. Yes, one of his sons is the favorite at present, but were he to be assassinated, they'll find someone else. That's what's happened with Hezbollah, incidentally, and Hamas.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your interesting analysis on this conflict that has even gone beyond three-pronged now, almost the whole Gulf states and some other areas. Lebanon has come into it. Thank you so much, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, author, international affairs analyst, speaking there from London. Thank you so much.